All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, we have another one, Eileen Pinchuk. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this community outreach meeting on January 17th for Coyote Cannabis Corporation, a proposed Tier 2 marijuana cultivator and marijuana product manufacturer. The facility is proposed to be located at 420 West Street in Uxbridge. Today we have with us Blake Mensing as a representative from Coyote Cannabis. The meeting will open with a presentation on the proposed establishment, followed by an opportunity for community engagement and questions. We ask that you hold all questions until the end of the presentation, at which point I'll open the floor. And with that, I'll let Blake take it away.
Thank you very much. I am Blake Mensing. I am the president of Coyote Cannabis Corporation, as well as a cannabis attorney, sort of as my day job. So yeah, the proposal is to locate a Tier 2 adult use cannabis cultivation operation and manufacturing license at 420 West Street in Uxbridge. That Tier 2 represents no greater than 10,000 square feet of canopy. The building itself is only 12,000 square feet. So I think we'll have a little bit, approximately 6,000 square feet of canopy. We're still in the process of laying it all out. The manufacturing will involve, the primary product will be from a commercial style edibles processing room, where we're going to be doing high-end chocolates and some of the infused gummies. None of those gummies may be in the shape of anything appealing to children, so they'll be shapes, not bears or worms or anything of the sort. Our primary manufactured product will be something called bubble hash rosin, which involves taking the plant down, freeze drying it, and then agitating it in a bath of ice water. And then what you do is you filter out obviously to take the plant matter out first, and then you filter out the trichomes, which is the place on the plant where the psychoactive materials are. That comes out kind of looking like sand. It's granular. That gets freeze dried again, and then pressed between two heated aluminum plates under something like 10 tons of pressure. So no butane or propane. We will have, for the first 4 months or so while our first crop is growing, a CO2 extraction machine, which is about the size of an office copier. It's closed loop. It uses CO2 instead of propane or butane. And that end product will be cannabis distillate, basically oil. What we're going to be doing is primarily feeding the edibles arm of that until we get to make our own in-house rosin, as I mentioned. So once that crop has started, and once we harvest the first crop, we'll have another one that comes behind that. So we'll be able to self-supply for edibles sourcing instead of using distillate. So we intend to move out the CO2 machine. So that will be there about 3-4 months, again, while those first plants are growing. So the state's Cannabis Control Commission requires that this facility have higher security measures than a bank or a pharmacy. So they get really granular in the regulations, which can be found at 935 CMR 500.110. It defines what resolution each camera may have. Essentially, every square inch of the facility except the bathrooms and changing rooms for staff will be on camera 24/7, 365. The state dictates that must be high definition footage stored for 90 days, where every single frame of that footage has an irremovable date, time, watermark, and location stamp in the building. We'll have a few cameras on the exterior just to catch the sort of immediately surrounding areas. None of the cameras will point onto anyone else's property, and we'll have basically no incentive for anyone to really know where we are, meaning there's not going to be any sign. Our only customers that we're eligible to sell to would be other licensed cannabis operators. So primarily that will be to retail establishments. So no foot traffic from customers. The only people who would ever be there would be a state inspector, a local inspector, police, fire, that kind of things. The Board of Health could send people or someone there for a valid business purpose. So it's not really a facility where you can say, hi, I'd like a tour. That can happen on occasion, but it has to be a valid reason. And there are strict rules on access to the building for minors. So if there was a circumstance where there was a police officer who happened to be 20 years old, showed up on site and tried to get in, we'd say, we're sorry, but the state law prohibits that. So that's a good segue to how we prevent diversion to minors. So the first gatekeeping function of preventing diversion to minors is that no minors are allowed in the building, no ifs, ands, or buts. So you can't bring your kids to work until they're 21. It's just a strict line in the sand. The other tool that we utilize to prevent diversion to minors has to do with the state's seed to sale tracking platform. Each plant and each end product that would ever leave our facility will have a unique alphanumeric code attached to it. Physically, when you're growing the plants, they have a literal tag at the base that follows it through the life cycle, as the name implies, from seed to sale. So as we start our plants, either from seed or a small cutting, they'll be what's known as the vegetative room. That's sort of when the plant is growing, what I describe as the scaffolding. So it's growing its stalks and its arms. And then when you flip it to what's called the flower room, you change the light period to 12 hours of light, 12 hours of pitch black. That's when the flowers, the buds actually are grown. And that's where the plant is essentially tricked into producing the trichomes that I mentioned earlier. All of these plants will be female plants. The trichomes are part of the plant's sort of reproductive process. It is both to ward off pests and, sort of if someone were to, if an animal were to ingest it, they might feel some psychoactive effects. But really the stickiness of the trichomes help attract the male pollen. We will not have any males. We're not going to be doing breeding on site. It's just going to be primarily fed through our ice water hash making process that I described earlier. So, mechanical agitation, ice water, as I said, no propane, butane, anything that any of the other bigger companies offer. So the sort of genesis of our company was seeing all these big players producing products that aren't very good, to be blunt. We are intending to satisfy people. This isn't going to be their first time consuming cannabis. This is going to be someone who's gotten a taste for the finer things in that particular category. So, as you can buy really expensive wine, we are trying to produce craft level, purpose-driven cannabis where we actually care about the end product. And our director of cultivation and manufacturing is a gentleman who has got 14 years of experience growing, and he helped set up some of the first medical facilities in the state. He helped with New England Treatment Access lay out their facility in Franklin, which was one of the first producers. He also worked for a company called Theory Wellness on the cultivation side. So yeah, he'll be spearheading the garden part of it and managing the staff that does the bubble hash rosin. And we have basically a classically trained chocolatier that is going to be making stuff again that fits that sort of connoisseur level niche, rather than just saying we want to win on volume. We're not going to win on volume, so we're going to try to win on quality alone. And that's just a basis based on that we want products that we would purchase ourselves. Part of what the state requires is a plan by the marijuana establishment to positively impact the community. So that has two meanings, obviously, to folks in Uxbridge. It's what are we going to do in Uxbridge proper? So we're certainly committed to volunteering. We're going to have some dialogues with any potential charitable sort of volunteer opportunities in town. Things like park cleanups. My brother and I, he's the CEO, unable to be with us tonight because his son is a 2-year-old and having a bit of a sickness right now. But anyway, yeah, he and I are the son of a United States Marine Corps veteran. So helping veterans is really important to us. We would love to work in the community to support any benefits to benefit veterans locally. On the state level, there's a capitalization here, positive impact plan. What that plan is intended to do is try to undo some of the wrongs of the drug war. What the statisticians did is they looked at consumption rates of people of color of cannabis and white people, and they determined that people on both sides of that equation consume cannabis at about the same rates. People of color, unfortunately, suffer 3.7 times more frequent interactions with the law, and then the sentences that were dropped on them tend to be significantly harsher and lengthier than non-people of color. So to try to help satisfy the state's positive impact plan requirement and actually move the needle, again, I'm as a cannabis attorney, so this is sort of how I think. We're going to be donating annually to a nonprofit called the Big Hope Project. I just volunteered about 3 weeks ago for an expungement and record sealing clinic, essentially to say people who had a low-level cannabis run-in with the law, whether it was a conviction or just an arrest, shouldn't have to carry that scarlet letter for the rest of their lives when that stuff is now completely legal. So there are statutory mechanisms to say this particular type of, again, crime or arrest can be removed from your record or at least blocked from some people's view, because that does have a negative impact on housing, employment opportunities, et cetera. So if we can help, get folks, a clean slate, that's really important to me personally. So yeah, both volunteering at expungement clinics and donating annually. What they just did at that same expungement event was they gave free suits, haircuts, headshots, and professional resume reviews. This was held in Jamaica Plain. They did that. That was for the gentlemen, and then in about 2 weeks over the weekend, they're doing a similar event that focused on women. So just a way to help people, better themselves, get their foot in the door. Whether it doesn't have to be cannabis industry, but just to sort of get them to a place where they can sort of break the cycle of poverty that a lot of people have faced. So that's incredibly important to me. It's incredibly important to us as a company. And lots of people say that, but again, I'm a cannabis attorney, so I have to think about this a lot. And that part of being an attorney is frankly the one part I still like, with helping people. It's the rest of it that I find less than enjoyable. It's why I'm starting the cannabis company, hopefully to not be a lawyer grinding away all day, every day. So just to flesh that out, as a cannabis attorney, I rely on my background. So I used to be a municipal attorney, so I represented towns. So following the rules is just something that I've always done. I think if you don't play by the rules, you can't play the game. So I know the state's regulatory requirements better than most. Our director of compliance, she has 6 years of experience working in the industry, and actually has blown the whistle on some people who are doing things that were not okay. And a lot of people would say, why would you hire a whistleblower? Because if you don't follow the rules, you can't play the game. That's why. So we are absolute sticklers in terms of cleanliness, sanitation, restricting access to the facility, preventing diversion of minors. One other point I wanted to make on that is because the seed to sale tracking gives us a unique code on every product. If we sell to a retailer and we get a report that ends up in some high school, it's not just, oh, we have the blinders on, that's not our problem. Oh no, we have it in our contracts that I draft that says, look, we're gonna drop people who can't keep control of their product. So ultimately, it's up to every adult to keep it locked away from children. But it's just not something that we will tolerate just at the, trying to make a buck. So I'm sure you know the facility. Obviously, if you got the notice, you're a nearby abutter. It's up on a little bit of a hill. It is frankly a very nice looking building from the street. The back part is just a big warehouse, steel building. We aren't going to change the facade at all. Again, because our customer base are only other licensed producers, we're not going to have any signage. It's just going to be, relying on the address. And what we have to do is demonstrate how we're not going to be a nuisance. So the chief culprit for a cultivation in the nuisance front is odor. So what the state cannabis control regulations require is that you control your odor. So that is frankly a technological task. We have 2 separate grow rooms in the big warehouse that we're planning to do. They'll be a little under 3,000 square feet each. So again, just around 6,000 square feet total. And just for context, the state allows up to 100,000 square feet of canopy, which I believe is what Cultivate down the road has. So a much bigger operation. What we get the benefit of by having those grow rooms within our warehouse is we have the walls of the warehouse as one buffer. We have the walls internal, and then each room has a separate HVAC system. And the reason we want them separate is for basically crop preservation purposes. If we have a contaminant or a microbe or a pest that gets into one room, if you share the ducts, then it's as good as infected the other. So anytime you have air coming out of those rooms and coming out of the building, that means air is going the other way. So if we have, if we're raising a stink, that means pathogens, microbes, mold, pests could be coming in. And it's frankly, that would be fatal to something of our size. We don't have millions and millions of dollars. We've raised primarily from family and friends. And we actually had another facility in Uxbridge that we built out about 95%, the neighbors said, will you move? And we said, we don't really want to. So we made up a number that we thought was going to be laughed at, and they said yes. So that's why we ended up in this bigger building, which will allow us, again, to stick with our model of producing the best quality we possibly can. We're a comparatively small operator, when judged against other folks in town in Uxbridge. And we're just really committed to being good neighbors, good citizens. I live just down the road in Holliston, so it's about 25 minutes for me to get there if I ever need to. And yeah, so as I said, my brother's the CEO, I'm the president, our mom's an investor, so we're not corporate giants. We're absolutely accountable, reachable. And then just as I said, as a cannabis attorney, I actually represent, I think, 8 other businesses in town. So I have a great relationship with Town Hall, and they actually asked me to record a promo video for why Uxbridge is a great place to do business. And I think the reason it is they have a set of rules that they hold you to, and they keep the rules in one place rather than pulling something out of their hat and moving a goalpost on you. So I believe I've now covered every topic required by the regulations, but I see a couple of folks in attendance. I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions. If anyone has one, I'll turn it back to Nathan.
Thanks, Blake. Yeah, right now we'll move into the community participation part of tonight's meeting. If you have any questions or comments about the proposed site, you can use the raise hand button to signal me. Or if you're attending by telephone, you can type *9 to raise your hand and wait for me to call on you.
I sense a question from Eileen.
Eileen, do you have a question, Eileen? Hold on, I can unmute you. Let's see.
Hi.
Good evening. Hi, Eileen.
Thank you so much for holding this meeting. So I just want to clarify a couple of things.
Sure.
So you've already purchased the building.
We're renting it.
You're renting the building. Okay. And then the building itself is not going to have any signage.
None.
That would indicate, okay. 21 and older. There's no, I can appreciate bringing your child to work day. So it's definitely 21 and older.
Correct.
I was actually going to ask the question about odor. So I'm glad we just put a large scale deck and an outdoor pool and a patio and a pavilion in our yard. So when I got this.
Understood. Yeah. I live about half a mile away from about 70,000 square feet of cannabis cultivation. I don't smell a thing. Obviously, it sounds like you're much closer because you got the notice. But yeah, we will use activated charcoal carbon filters on each separate HVAC system. And again, the size of this is comparatively small compared to some of the other folks in town. So yeah, I'm happy to provide my my cell phone and email in the chat, and we're an open door. If there's ever an odor, let us know and we'll control it. I really think we have the right technology, and the scale of the grow is so small in terms of the grand scheme of life, that we're very confident that we can keep it internal. You should be able to walk around the building, not that we say you'd be allowed to, but you should be able to walk around the building physically and not smell a thing. Once you get inside, you're going to smell it because that's where the plants are growing. But yeah, we'll have the room within a room, and the exterior air, any air that's ever vented from the facility will have gone through a filtration. And yeah, it's relatively small in the grand scheme of life.
And how many employees will be in and out of there daily?
Daily, we're probably looking at around 12.
Okay.
So we've got adequate parking on site. We sort of our head of operations, the director of cultivation, manufacturing, and director of compliance, or I guess I changed her title, the director of operations. Yeah, they're going to be running the ship, and the folks who are assisting either in the edibles room or the lab space. We're probably going to have, like I said, about 12 total. So 2 people who are 3 people who are baked into the hierarchy of the entity already. The 3 heads of the 3 major departments. My brother and I will be on site, not every day, but occasionally. And yeah, it's probably, if we ever had 15 people employed at one shift, I'd say that would be pretty big. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of packaging, and Yeah, 12 to 15 is my rough estimate.
All right, I have looks like Dan has a question as well. Let's see. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I guess I have a couple questions. So you have 12 employees, or you're between 12 to 15 employees, and what are the hours that you guys are looking at working over there?
It'll be normal business hours. There would be a potential occasional sort of night visit if something were to go wrong, but there's not a second shift or anything. So I'd say something like 8 to 6 would be the normal shift, something like that. And in terms of that's employees, any deliveries to or from the facility, whether it's bringing in some input that we're using, chocolate or gelatin or whatever it is we're using to make something, that will come in. It's not going to be 18 wheelers. It's likely going to be Sprinter vans, and then the finished products can go anywhere from a small SUV to one of those sort of Sprinter vans. So not big box trucks, not 18 wheelers. The volume of products we are going to produce is not going to be enormous. I don't know if you're here at the beginning of this, but yeah, we're really just focusing on making the best quality we can. So we're not going to be the Walmart in this context. We'll be a smaller producer. And then just one other thing, I do have my own dispensary out in Holyoke. So I know we have at least the one customer. We've gotten 5 other entities to say they'd like to purchase our products just based on the strength of my team's reputation. But yeah, the traffic will be, I would say, pretty negligible. Yeah, not a whole lot of vehicle trips. I'm just putting my my phone number and my email in the chat. Just wanted to do that before I forget.
And is that just going to be Monday to Friday?
Yeah, we won't have much on the weekend. So as you may know, Uxbridge doesn't have a separate special permit for this. So they typically do set hours in a special permit. I would say we may have 1 or 2 folks on a weekend, but it's not going to be the full shift. Especially where the plant is in the life cycle. If it needed to either be harvested or shifted, we would adjust. But certainly the plan is to keep it, normal business hours and weekdays for well over 90% of what we're doing there. So yeah, any sort of nighttime visits would be on a responsive sort of emergency basis of, hey, this sensor went down or what have you, or in response to some other issue to come address. And then yeah, the weekend is not going to be heavily staffed at all. Yeah, we want folks to have lives who work for us too. So yeah, we don't want to work them to the bone.
Any other questions, Dan? Okay.
Yeah, the reason I asked is just because at this point, what's that?
Oh, he was just asking if you had another question, but it sounds like you do.
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I'm asking, yeah, the video is kind of like all over the place. Like 1 minute it's like you're there and you're talking, but I can't hear what you're saying. So, but it's like, I guess the reason I ask about the hours and the things like weekends is because, I mean, if you've been in Uxbridge, you know that especially just in this one small area, you've got multiple places growing right here, and so in doing different things. And most of the facilities that I see, there's people there pretty much 24/7. So that's why I guess I'm kind of curious about that. The other thing is, so you mentioned about like the thing with smell and lighting. Now I'm assuming lighting wise, you guys will be pretty contained because you're inside the building. But the problem is, as a neighbor, I have a slight bad taste in my mouth with all of this because of Cultivate. So Cultivate, they kick the vents on and it's just like pot central. Like, you, depending on which way the wind's blowing, you feel like you're getting high. The other thing I have against Cultivate is before Cultivate appeared, there used to be darkness. Now, pretty much every night, especially with cloud cover, they kick the lights on over there and it's like day glow. I mean, you can see this from the Rhode Island border when you're coming up the highway. And I don't understand how they get away with it, but it's one of those things where I don't know the rules of what they are allowed to and not to do.
Yeah, the one point I'd make is just that grow is done in a giant greenhouse. So our lights won't be seen from the outside. The only lighting we'll have on the exterior of the building will likely be motion activated. So we're not going to have any big spotlights or floodlights. And yeah, just significantly less cultivation. So we're not going to be belching odors. Again, we want to be good neighbors, and that's our firm commitment. So, I would say with Cultivate, that would be something you could raise, with the Board of Selectmen or the company directly. They may be staffed 24/7. Their products and their product line are very different than what we're going to make. So the reason they're staffed 24/7 is because they do have big corporate backers, right? So this is, as I said, primarily friends and family that just believed in us and believed in the commitment to quality. We are not going to win against any operator like Cultivate because they can outproduce us and basically try to win a race to the lowest price per unit for product. That's not a fight I want to have, just because A, I don't want to raise money from corporate overlords. B, I don't like that product myself personally. And we're really seeing a lack of pride and passion in the process to make products that I think are sort of worthy of a cannabis connoisseur's attention. So we're by definition a smaller operator. That's part of the reason I decided to call the company Coyote Cannabis. We're not the big dog. So coyotes, of course, aren't the biggest animal out in the world, and they have to rely on being clever. So that's the sort of philosophy. We want to make products that the bigger players would say, you guys are leaving money on the table by not maximizing every sort of potential efficiency gain. And we say, great, you can make whatever products you want. We're going to stay in this lane where we care more about the consumer than I think the profit motivated companies do. And I don't know Cultivate personally. It's just when you build a greenhouse of that size, that tells me money is your primary motivator. In this operation with our team, yes, we'd like to make money, but it is genuinely a company I started when I purchased a product at a store in Massachusetts that they labeled rosin, which I believe to be the finest cannabis concentrate in the world, and it was absolutely terrible. So I got so offended by that as being representative of this category that I started this company to try to put something on the market that is made by people who care about the plant first. So yeah, that's I think what separates us. We will make money, but we will make less of a profit percentage than a bigger player because we've chosen to. So yeah, just a very different sort of operational founding principle. And I think the fact that we've decided to stay small is in recognition of the fact that we don't want to raise 10, 20, 40, 50 million dollars. We want to stay within our collective means. We don't have plans to get any bigger. The building is as big as it is. I think the bigger you get, the lower the quality. So I don't see any reason why we would ever want to be bigger than this. And yeah, it's going to be self-contained, and our goal is to be relatively anonymous. You're certainly welcome to reach out to us, but we hope that you forget about our particular little operation just because of its location and the scope of what we're trying to build there.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one of the other things I'd be curious is, you said that you had started another one in Uxbridge, and then you had it about 95% built out or running, whatever, operational, and then your neighbors basically politely asked you to leave. So I guess the question is why?
Oh, they're a cannabis neighbor. So they asked to leave so they could take over our building. So they paid us to take over our lease. So they're buying the property from the landlord. I believe it's February 8th. So yeah, it wasn't a complete motivated move. It was they wanted to have the second little building on a bigger plot of industrial land right behind. It's off Quaker Highway. So yeah, that building of ours was 4,800 square feet, and it was going to be really, really tight for us. We were actually going to try to build a second building there to get us to around 12,000 square feet. So then when the landlord said, I have a 12,000 square foot building, and the neighbors said, we'll pay you to leave to help us pay for that build out in the bigger building, we decided to move to the larger space.
If Dan's questions are done, I'm going to go ahead and give the floor back to Eileen. Looks like she has another question.
Okay, just one other question.
Sure.
When you talk about the concept that we hope you're not there and there's no signage and anything else, is there anything rooted in crime relative to you don't want people to know you're there to draw?
Yeah. So this facility, as I said, every square inch is going to be on camera. We've offered to share that with the chief of police if there's ever a reason to respond. The only incident of attempted burglary that I'm aware of was during some rioting at a retail store in downtown Boston, in Grove Hall. I think that's Dorchester or Mattapan. In any event, that's the only one I'm aware of. It was, someone I think threw a brick through a window and just sort of ran in during, as I said, during a riot. There's no benefit to someone knowing where we are other than our customer base, which are licensed folks. It's certainly going to be public record, so someone could figure it out. I would say the likelihood of success of someone, breaking into this facility is incredibly low. I think criminals don't target facilities like this in general. Because of the awareness of that extra security. So, as I said, it's stricter security regulations than a bank or a pharmacy. So, commercial grade locks, there are rules about which employees may go into which portion of the facility. So the sort of finished product vault will be known as a limited access area. So someone who works, as a trimmer or a packaging associate, won't get to access these things. And the reason I bring that up is, the likelihood of someone, coming to work for us, going through a background check to try to case the joint, I think is incredibly low. And, really, if I were a criminal, I'd probably pick a bigger prize than this. But yeah, I'm not aware of any cultivation or manufacturing facility in the entire state that have ever had any sort of break-in attempts. And certainly I've never heard of one being successful. So yeah, I don't expect anyone to be that sort of foolish to try. I do have one retail client out in Arizona. They got a letter from their local sheriff. Their store was on the wrong side of the tracks. And after the store opened there, they saw a huge downturn in crime in the vicinity because of all the camera coverage. So the word got out on the street that, hey, you can't do crimes near that spot. And that's, it's just becomes a known sort of security hub, right? This stuff is monitored. So certainly being on West Street, I don't imagine sort of roving bands of, criminals casing the joint or coming down the street. But yeah, if they were, it would be, there's duress alarms. So there'd be a panic button to call the police right away. The security systems have, you actually have redundant security systems. So someone couldn't come and cut the wire of one. So we'll have both a hard wire and a cellular signal as a way to get that signal out if someone were to try. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be anything that anyone's going to attempt to get into.
And when do your plans move forward?
Yep. So this meeting was one of the required components. So we did get the Board of Selectmen's approval and signature on our host community agreement last week or the week before. So we'll apply for state licensure this week. The state generally takes, I'd say, about 6 to 9 months to get back to us to say you've cleared the hurdle that you're worthy of licensure. Again, my job as a cannabis attorney, this is what I do. I help people follow the rules and get licensed. And just as part of our original building, we had a smaller tier, a tier 1 cultivation license and a manufacturing license. So what I'm actually doing is selling those 2 licenses to help pay for the build out, so I don't have to go to some big corporation where they could say, we don't like your commitment to quality, or we don't like, you know, X, Y, or Z. So I'm selling those licenses. That'll take probably about 4 months to get the commission's approval on that. So I'd say we're hoping to start some construction, you know, spring, and then we're sort of at the mercy of the build out. So I would say, you know, if we're open October, that would be pretty awesome. Especially since, you know, I've paid rent on the other warehouse for 2 years, and I'm paying more rent on this building. So yeah, we hopefully before the end of 2022 we'll be open, but we're at the mercy of the government, so we'll have to see.
Okay. My husband is actually on a call. He sits on a local nonprofit's board of directors. And if he had any questions, could he contact you?
Absolutely. Yep. I put my my phone number and email in the chat. Maybe you can tell I happen to love talking about this. So if I can talk his ear off, I'm sure. Just one other thing, at the risk of tooting my own horn, in law school, I did earn the Dean's Award for Professional Responsibility for exemplifying the highest ethical standards of the profession. So I didn't know that was an award. I just, as I said, really like to follow rules. So I am a relentless straight shooter. So anything that you ask me, I will tell you what I think. And if I don't know, I'm not going to fake it. I will say, I don't know, but let me find out. So yeah, now anytime, call, text, email, carrier pigeon, I am very reachable. As I said, I'm about 25 minutes down the road. I live right on Route 16 in Holliston. So yeah, I've have nothing but warm thoughts for Uxbridge, and don't want anyone to have cause to say, you know, what are these people doing? That is not who we are, why we want to do it. And that's just not going to change. And so I'll be forever accessible to anyone. You know, compliments, complaints, anything in between, happy to hear it.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So he can feel free to reach out anytime. Just reference you and I'll say, hey, I know who that is. So
Sure. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, if we don't have any other questions, I think we can conclude this community outreach meeting. Just going to give it a couple more seconds in case someone wants to raise their hand.
Yeah, and I'll just say thank you both for coming and expressing your thoughts and concerns and questions. If any others do come up, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, I hope to be someone you don't notice, but if you happen to see me, maybe you can say hello, and that would be lovely. So yeah, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.